Welcome to the Voices of Visegrad, a video recap of the most important events in the Visegrad Group countries. My name is Karolina Choina and I will guide you through this episode. Today we will cover the intricacies of the relationship between Prime Minister Orban and President Trump, Slovakia's reliance on Russian energy, the sabotage on the Polish railway, as well as the insights from the Europe Future Forum on economic security. Last but not least, we will cover Czechia's support for Ukraine. Is Orban's Washington win a triumph or a political trap?
Today we dive into Viktor Orban's recent much-hyped visits to Moscow and earlier to Washington. Viktor Orban is seeking for a triumph, with Hungarian elections just in 5 months, the Fidesz trailing Peter Magyar's Tisza party by up to 10 points, Orban flashy US visits, and fixing for cheap Russian energy is needed to keep the voters buying his victory story. Back at home, the state media hailed those meetings and the sanction exemption from Russian oil and gas. But in Brussels and across the EU, this sparked a huge critics.
Next, Boton Feledi shares his perspective on the potential Trump visit to Budapest before the elections.
And it's really important in describing the type of politics often referred to as nationalist politics of Viktor Orban, that he's not the typical 19th century nationalist or 20th century nationalist that would build up military might, soldiers in the army, on all the aggressive moves. He's rather the appeaser. He says peace is something that defines my nationalist message, because our nation, our tradition, or whatever is what I am truly honoring. But in the sense of international system, he basically says might makes right. And the mightiest are coming to town. So in that sense, he might be selling a message to his audience. Boton, I guess I'm just trying to ask you, what do you make of his chances in the election game against the background of such a potential visit?
Very good question. And indeed, the electoral court is the immediate and most important for him, as the opposition has never been so united as this time, with the Tisza party being member of the EPP in the European Parliament. And currently, the polling shows a double-digit advantage to Tisza. So I believe Orban is really ready to pull games that probably he was not needed to do in previous elections. That's one thing. Now, the polarization in Hungary is quite extreme. I don't need to explain it to Polish or recently even to Czech audiences. We have all been through polarized elections. But talking about Ukraine is extremely difficult to the Hungarian public. The pro-Russian stance has been so widespread and repeated in the public media so many times and in different ways that the Hungarian public opinion has shifted. And that must be taken also into account by the opposition party. Putting that aside, Orban has always been very clear that he is playing the loyalty game, also domestic politics level as well as in foreign policy. So Orban has friends, or as that's how he calls it. I don't think it's necessarily reciprocal. But he's talking about Netanyahu, about Trump, about other politicians as, being in the loyal patriot family. And I think this is a show of, or a demonstration of loyalty to Trump. And let me highlight here something. Often we talk about their relationship, and certainly there is a chemistry working. However, there are significant tensions in the Hungarian-American relationship.
Now let's turn to Slovakia and look at its energy dependency, featuring a piece by Eva Michoczkova and insights from our online event.
Slovakia and Hungary remain the last Central European holdouts on Russian energy dependence, despite viable alternatives. Slovakia has cut gas from nearly 100% to under half of its consumption through diversification via Poland, Czechia, or Hungary. And both Slovakia and Hungary share a critical vulnerability in exclusive reliance on Russian nuclear fuel for their Soviet-designed reactors. Thus, the energy decisions are officially defended as matters of sovereignty and affordability. But yet the domestic pro-Russian political narratives play at least as large role as these genuine security concerns.
Joining us are experts Andrzej Nosko and Ewa Michoczkowa discussing Slovakia's energy dependency. For more on this topic, see Ewa Michoczkowa's article on visegradinsight.eu.
So obviously, I mean, when we talk about oil and gas, you can kind of separate the question into 3 or 4 categories: technical, business, and political. So technically, we have enough interconnectors to cover for all of the supply. But the question is not only whether you can bring the commodity technically, there is also the question of what will be the cost of bringing that commodity. What are the business conditions? So, what does it mean if you decide that you're going to bring all of the commodity from west or from north? What does it mean to bring gas via Poland, for example? If you talk to the traders, and off record, because they cannot speak publicly, they will tell you that it's so expensive to transfer the relatively small volumes of gas to Slovakia, that it just doesn't make business sense. So, technically you can. We have the interconnectors, they have capacity, but both the regulatory regime in Poland and the business conditions make it basically commercially non-viable to import the gas via Poland. Then the last question is the political, because if you have a long-term contract which is priced for the commodity at your national border, and you are being asked to replace the long-term contract for the commodity that you're going to buy on an open market, which is quite competitive, and you are at the end of the pipe, that means that the cost of that commodity is going to increase because you need to pay for the commercial cost, plus you need to pay for the transit of that commodity. Referring back to if there are also tariff obstacles on the way to your country.
The gasification is part of a problem because it's hard to convince people who are using gas for heating their houses that they should switch to renewables. I mean, there is also a very objective, very reasonable debate over, okay, if we will massively switch to renewables, what are we gonna do with the gas infrastructure? That is really massive. I think that 94% of people in Slovakia have access to gas, actually. So this is definitely a part of a problem rather than solution. And moreover, if you are asking me about the renewables in Slovakia, there's just not enough political will to push for this process.
Now, let's move to Bartosz Wieliński, comment on the act of sabotage on the Polish railway.
An explosive was planted on the railway connecting Warsaw and Ukraine in the village of Mika. Explosive detonated, the railway was severely damaged, and there was a miracle that nothing bad happened. No train was damaged and there was no casualties. These explosives were planted by saboteurs hired by the GRU, and it was the first attempt of sabotage in Polish recent history. Extremely hostile act by the Russian Federation, and there will be severe consequences for Poland, for the region, and for the NATO.
Hi, let's hit pause for Polish politics for a second. If you're enjoying this episode, why not join us with a Visegrad Insight subscription? It unlocks all our online content and gets you into our events. And plus, a special treat for you listeners, head to visegradinsight.eu, choose a yearly subscription, apply code Visegrad25 to enjoy your 25% discount.
Let's go back to the Europe Future Forum to hear one of our speakers, Piotr Matczuk, discuss the Polish Development Fund's role in Polish economic security.
In one of the recent interviews, you mentioned that 50% of Polish companies want to invest beyond Poland. They seek this expansion, international expansion. Could you give us maybe a bit of a flavor of what sort of examples of companies' successful expansion we could observe, we could watch, we could expect maybe in the coming years?
Probably the closest examples to me are the examples that we've worked on and we help to expand. I mean, in general, we have a number of tools to support such an expansion. And we do see this expansion broadly. So on one hand, it's expansion with sort of investment outlays like capex abroad, and it could be either acquisition or greenfield investment. On the other hand, we can also help company to build up its resources in the country to allow for very directed exports. Mm-hmm. So when we look at the examples, I mean, just recently, like literally 3 weeks ago, we signed a transaction with Grupa Trend, which is a company that produces consumer goods, and the financing provided by PFR and our partner institution CVI, which is a debt fund from Poland. We helped the company to acquire its company in Germany, which is one of Europe's largest right now, and also produces outside Europe in a number of production facilities, for example, in India. And then there's a number of synergies between the entities, so we expect it will be very much positive for the Polish company to grow. Then within the last 12 months, we supported at least 2 transactions like that. We supported the expansion of EUWIC, the IT company, into Ukraine, to consolidate the IT market in Ukraine. Then we also worked with Sanok Rubber to expand to Finland, where they bought a company that specializes in rubber products. And in all of these projects, PFR supported either with equity or debt. And this is, in general, I mean, these 3 transactions are just the very beginning for us, because we will be announcing more transactions even this year. So we do see a lot of interest for this direction. In terms of geography of the expansion, I think that there is huge interest in Europe still, although PFR does not have any sort of geographic targets for Polish companies going abroad, because we are happy to support them anyways in any geographies. But most of them would be probably benefiting Europe, and then some of them are also addressing the US market, which is also an interesting direction for us.
All of these topics have been most pronounced during the last Europe Future Forum, where you spoke, and PFR partnered up to set up a context of this discussion about the economic security, which shapes the markets, partly the policies of these markets.
Now let's hear from our panelists, Petr Koller and Katerina Szafarikowa, discuss Czechia's support for Ukraine.
There is any change in the case of the Czech public TV or public radio, then it will be definitely a testing case for this regulation, because it will be the first time it might be applied, and we will see what happens. And that's here there is this question whether it's profitable for Babiš to enter such a battle with the European Commission, which he doesn't respect as any other supranational institution. But if this would be profitable, and if he would on purpose go into such a struggle, given the number of other priorities he might have in his head, and even also his will, perhaps, to establish contacts with the leaders all around Europe.
I would just add one thing, that it's acknowledged, it's said publicly that the state is actually outsourcing some of its duties on organizations like People in Need. For example, they are providing for a basic social service in regions. They're helping out with homeless people, etc. So they are needed in the Czech Republic, and the Czech state is, paying them for it quite happily. So I think, again, Babiš or the others, they would have to really make their calculation and see, where to cut it in order not to dismantle the structure of a state at all.
We will soon move to Q&A part of our discussion today. So I would encourage our viewers to either send questions into the chat or raise your hands. And since we still have 2 minutes before we move to that second part, perhaps, if I may, I would quickly also point out the issue of a Ukrainian minority in the Czech Republic, which Czech Republic is the largest per capita host country of Ukrainians fleeing Russian aggression since 2022. Already before that, there was a sizable Ukrainian minority in the country. And of course, the minority has been subject of attacks from radical parties. Do you want to use those two minutes and quickly comment on how protected or not protected the Ukrainian minority is against the possible new parliament that may not be as supportive of the minority as the previous one was?
Well, if you were to judge it just by the mere rhetorics of the opposition representatives, obviously they are not protected at all, since all the opposition parties nowadays, they're claiming something must be done with Ukrainians in the Czech Republic. And this something, it can vary as of scrapping the subsidies for them, for example, or I don't know, limiting some numbers of incoming people.
If you want to know more about what the Czech elections mean for the EU, check out Visegrad Insight's latest article. That's all from the Voices of Visegrad for today. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We will see you in the next episode of the Voices of Visegrad.